morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat. I so do appreciate you being here. A little bit late this morning. Sorry. I've been dealing with some technical issues this week. Yes, technical issues. You guys can always comment. Good morning, Cat. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Be sure to subscribe today. Go to patriotpumpenergy.com. Support the channel by buying your pre-workout today. Use promo code ConservativeCat for $10 off at checkout. And you guys can always send super chats. The chat is alive and well this morning. I appreciate you being here. Now, there's a few things I want to get to this morning. Let loose and desecrate. So there was something that happened here in the state of Illinois that we have to get to. The state of Illinois, this judge freed a monster. And, I really want to blame the judge, but it is the Safety Act. That's why this happened. They freed a monster, and ICE had to come in, step in, and save us all from this monster who was let free. He was roaming around, and then he went back to the crime scene and desecrated this body. So we're going to get to that. Plus, Illinois, they are handing out millions to mystery groups. And I've talked about this before, to nonprofit organizations, the nonprofit sector. It is truly something that we as Christians should speak out against. The nonprofit sector has really gotten huge. And it used to be where the government would work with churches, Christian churches specifically. And we don't do that anymore. We work with nonprofit organizations. And really, these are just mysterious groups. They're mystery groups. And there's zero oversight to see if they are actually helping those in need and doing what they're saying they're going to be doing with the taxpayer dollars. So your money is really what it's doing. It's funding corruption, because these nonprofit groups, it's really shady. If you were to ever spend a day in Springfield, you'd find out pretty quickly who gets things done. It's the nonprofit sector. So they're the ones who get all the money. They're the ones who lobby all the time. And it's fascinating because I swear to God, I have seen the same people with different T-shirts on. So they must be like with multiple different nonprofits or whatever, and they go there all day and they lobby your lawmakers. And of course, your lawmakers cave because they're weak cowards, and they provide them millions in cash, and there is no oversight on these with these mysterious groups to see if they're actually doing what they say they're going to be doing with your tax dollars. I do want to get to the El Salvador president and the White House. I watched this and I feel really bad for Hunter Biden. And I don't say that often about these types of people because they're truly evil. And I believe that Hunter Biden is a pretty evil person and he definitely needs a savior. Jesus Christ. But I feel really bad for this guy because I'm pretty sure he was coked out when he was doing this interview. I mean, when you look at his pupils, they're very dilated. He seemed to be unhinged. It was inappropriate, if you ask me. It was a YouTube podcaster, I think, who sat down with him and did a podcast interview type. But the fact that he went on this cussing tirade and really was unhinged tells me all I really need to know about the YouTuber. Clearly, he's not in the he's not doing the show in the interest of the public. He just wanted to put Hunter Biden out there and get clicks, which, I'm not totally against showing the true colors of Hunter Biden, but really what this YouTuber, I think, was doing was exploiting the fact that Hunter Biden has a severe addiction and exploiting that fact because, I don't know, when you say F this, F that, F this, F that, it's not really productive. Okay. And I'm glad we exposed Hunter Biden for who he really is, but I think we pretty much knew who this guy was. But he made a remark about invading El Salvador in a truly unhinged rant. And me personally, if I'm conducting interviews, and I've done it a few times here on the show, I'm not going to conduct an interview with somebody who says F this, F that, and doesn't add anything to the conversation. Clearly, Hunter Biden was, if not intoxicated, not in a state of mind to where he was able to have a well thought out dialogue with an individual. So this was an intense thing to watch. It was really cringy. I was biting my nails the whole time when I was watching Hunter. we're going to watch him together. So my fellow patriots, my fellow truth seekers, my lovers of liberty, please go ahead, subscribe to the channel. Christ is our cornerstone. The Constitution is our compass, and common sense has been outlawed. Yet, I'm your host, Conservative Cat, and today we are going to walk you through the complete disgrace that is the Safety Act in Illinois. And you heard that right. This is not a Saturday Night Live sketch. I am not doing a comedic bit. This is real life. This is not a Babylon Bee headline. This woman died. She's dead. And there is a criminal illegal alien that was let loose by an Illinois judge. And it took ICE, yes, the much hated ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. It took them to step in and to protect the people of Illinois, because your elected officials won't. So what am I talking about? Well, we're going to head to a location. It's called Antioch, Illinois. I think I'm saying that correctly. This is a horrifying case. So trigger warning. This is very, very horrifying. Turned my stomach this morning. I had to eat something before I read this story. It was very disgusting. He's a 52-year-old illegal alien from Mexico. Horrifying case. Jose Luis Mendoza Gonzalez is his name now. He was charged, not suspected, okay, not being investigated, but rather charged with 4 felonies this past April, including concealing the death and abusing a corpse of a woman. He obstructed justice in the death of 37-year-old Megan Boss. And this is in Lake County. So Lake County judge, what did they do? Or this judge do? Well, because of the Safety Act, they opened the door and they let this guy walk right out. That's right. No cash bail, no GPS monitoring, no ankle bracelet, nothing like that. This was a quick courtroom visit and a see you later. I'll see you. And then what? ICE had to hunt him down and get him off the streets of Chicago like the rabid animal he is, because the Safety Act tied the hands of law enforcement, and they had to unlock the doors of the cell and let this criminal out because of the Safety Act. So let me be blunt. This act didn't just enable Mendoza Gonzalez, it protected him. So we come to find out what Mendoza Gonzalez did as soon as he got out. He went back to the crime scene and desecrated the body of this Megan Boss, whom he's, charged with killing her. I mean, this is pretty insane. Concealing the death, abusing a corpse. So this is really, really bad. And let's talk about this monstrosity, which we know as the Safety Act. I know it sounds nice. Safety Act, safety, accountability, fairness, equity, all the trigger words, right? Today, that's not what the Safety Act really stands for. It's anything but safe. Safe because really we should name it. And I've been trying, throw it in the comments section. What do you guys think we should rename the Safety Act? I've been playing around with names this morning. Criminal first, victim last. That is the act that I would rename this. Criminals first. That is how I'd rename the Safety Act. But it was passed in the dead of night in 2021 during lame duck session. You guys might remember this if you've been with me since 2021. We talked about it. And this should be your first red flag. Anything that is passed like that in the legislature, laws, the worst laws in America are passed that way. They get shoved through when nobody's watching. And their crown jewel within the Safety Act is the Pretrial Fairness Act, which effectively abolished cash bail. And Illinois was the first state really to go fully woke, fully soft on crime, statewide in September of 2023. Okay, with the Pretrial Fairness Act. So this is the same state, by the way. They can't fix the roads, can't fix the budget, can't keep power plants running, can't keep the power on. We're dealing with the threat of blackouts, rolling blackouts, the state of Illinois. So we suck at everything here in the state of Illinois. Still got lead pipes, I guess, in our smaller municipalities, consolidated sewer systems, lake source water, things that the government should be doing, your basic infrastructure. They can't get that squared away, but whatever. They thought it was a good idea. The same state who can't function and do things like basic infrastructure, they decided it would be a good idea to let offenders walk free after a paperwork shuffle. I mean, that's essentially what the Safety Act is all about. It's about shuffling paperwork. Really, criminals aren't held accountable anymore. So Judge Randy Bruno, remember that name. I need some coffee. This Lake County judge was the judge who let out Mendoza Gonzalez walk free. And this wasn't some low-level theft, okay? This guy was charged with hiding the body of Megan Boss in a storage container, desecrating the body of the corpse, obstructing the investigation. And what does the Safety Act say? Let him go. Let him go. Sorry, Judge, you can't use your own discretion. You can't use your judgment. Despite you being a judge, you just have to check the boxes and let this guy go. So the mayor of this town in Illinois, in Lake County, Scott Gartner, he is one of the very few elected officials, by the way, who have the courage to call this kind of stuff out. And he's right. The law has stripped the judges of their ability to use common sense and to actually use discretion, some sort of discretion. And, judges want to use discretion. I mean, that's the whole point of them being elected as judges in serving as a judge. They have to use discretion. It's quite literally in their title. They have to judge. So they have to try to use discretion to discern between a purse thief and a predator. Okay, somebody who steals a purse, still a scumbag, but there are varying sentences you can apply depending on the crime. And essentially what the Safety Act does is make them robots. We didn't elect robots, okay? We elected people to make judgments and to use their common sense and their discretion. That's why they're called judges. But of course, under the Safety Act, these monsters, they get a jail-free, get out of jail for free card. And if they don't fit the bureaucratic profile, so most of the time, if they're not white, if they're a criminal alien, then they get a get out of jail free card, because it's always about the criminal first and the victim last. And these poor criminals are victims, in the eyes of the legislature who passed the Safety Act. So, Kat, who had to clean up Illinois' mess? You might be asking me, who had to come in and deal with Mendoza Gonzalez? ICE, the agency that Democrats want to abolish, by the way. This is the same agency that President Donald Trump, who's now back in office, woohoo, empowered with a backbone and a badge. He said, go be ICE agents, go be enforcers of the law. And Assistant DHS Secretary Tricia McLaurin said it out loud. Every day, ICE is arresting these sickos like Mendoza Gonzalez. You have got to be a really sick person to abuse a corpse, like really sick. So they're out there every day arresting these sickos like Mendoza Gonzalez and stopping them before they can terrorize Americans. So, and I don't miss this. Under President Donald Trump, his second term, and under Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, ICE arrests of dangerous felons have skyrocketed in Chicago. Okay, so don't sleep on that. The fact that it took a President Donald Trump second term and a Kristi Noem to come in and arrest these dangerous felons, clearly the arrests are skyrocketing. Don't sleep on that. According to Chicago Tribune, not exactly bastion of conservative thought, by the way, ICE is now arresting 3 times the number of convicted criminals and 9 times the number of unknown status aliens compared to Biden's final stretch. So ICE is going in and they're actually arresting and convicting these criminals, these criminal illegal aliens, and they're deporting them. They're sending them back where they came from and getting them the hell out of here so they can't desecrate our bodies after they kill us, right? Now, from what I understand, I don't know if this guy actually murdered this woman, but he went back to the crime scene, and I'll get to that here later, after he was released on Safety Act. Okay, so here's the kick at the sanctuary cities like Chicago, New York. They protect the criminals, and ICE has to go into the streets, and then they have to conduct these arrests. And then that's why we have seen arrests skyrocket in places like Chicago. They have to go find these criminals. It would be so much easier if you could just find that or deport them from within the prison, and if they are kept locked up. But it's so much harder. And if libs had any brain cells, they'd realize that, hey, it's probably better for us, or they'd deport less people if they're not out in the streets. Okay, so because if ICE is out there finding people breaking the law while they're out there searching for people like Mendoza Gonzalez, they're going to just find them breaking the law, and then they're going to deport them while they're out in the streets. You could probably contain the deportment or the deportations and keep them at a minimum if you just keep the really violent ones in the prison. Then Border Czar Tom Homan wouldn't have to flood the zone, like he said. He goes, we're flooding the zone. Okay, so they're only flooding the zone because they're forced to kind of flood the zone because they're out in the streets trying to find the people that were released under things like Safety Act. So Jennifer Boss, who's the mother of Megan Boss, I wonder if we've stopped and take a moment to think about what she's going through. Okay, she doesn't get her daughter back. What she does get, thanks to ICE, not the state of Illinois, not the Safety Act, she gets some peace of mind knowing that that predator is behind bars. State Representative Patrick Sheehan, who is a police officer, said it best. He's quoted in the Center Square. Law enforcement is handcuffed and criminals walk free. Sheehan pointed out that Mendoza Gonzalez spent less than 24 hours in jail. Let me say that one more time. Less than 24 hours in jail. And he was able to return to the scene of the crime and possibly destroy evidence. Okay, so that's not failure. That's a betrayal of Illinoisans everywhere. This Safety Act enabling that criminal to go do that. Illinois caucus, Freedom Caucus, they hit the nail on the head. They said, quote, Pritzker's pro-criminal policies are putting us all in danger. And this isn't just about this one city in Lake County, okay? This is about Chicago, Springfield, Peoria, Bloomington, Rockford. Every time a judge is stripped of his or her discretion, every time a sheriff is told to stand down and not cooperate with ICE, every time ICE is blocked from doing its job, we are a step closer to anarchy. And, you know, they are dressing it up like equity or like criminal justice reform, and they can do that all they want. But elections are coming up. And elections matter. This is why judges matter. This is why elections matter. And this is why state law matters more than most people realize. Your state laws matter a whole lot. The Safety Act isn't about compassion. I want to make that clear. It's not about criminal justice reform. It's about control. And the only people being controlled are the enforcement officers, the law enforcement officers, and the families like Megan Boss and the families of Megan Boss. It's criminal first, victims last. That's what the Safety Act is all about. So what can we do? You can call our state lawmakers, especially if they're Democrats, and ask them why the hell they supported a law that would let a corpse abuser walk free. We can vote them out. We can support local law enforcement, encourage our sheriffs to work with ICE, and tell them to ignore the Trust Act, which is a bogus state law, and a lot of sheriffs are misinterpreting that. But ICE, the ones I sent into Chicago, We can be kind to ICE and the law enforcement that has been sent into Chicago. We can support that law enforcement, not the ones who are the sheriffs who are saying, oh, we can't support ICE in any kind of way because of the state law, the Trust Act. If they hide behind the Trust Act, they're losers. They're weak. They're cowards. Third, we've got to demand real justice reform, one that puts discretion back at the top. Okay, we need to allow our judges to judge and have discretion. And not just checklists, because that's really what's going on here. They okay, we processed this individual. They were here. They have to come back for their court date. They're released. No cash bail. Boom. Check box. Check this box. Check that box. We have to put the law back into the hands of our judges and our law enforcement. And we have to stop treating criminals like they're misunderstood. Okay. And like they're the victims. And we have to start protecting the actual victims like Megan Boss, whose body was desecrated. Jesus himself said this, blessed are the peacemakers. And I don't know about you, but the Safety Act is anything but peace. Okay, the men and women who put on the badge and stop these predators, ICE, when the state refuses to, I'd say that those people are the peacemakers. And Jesus said it himself, blessed are the peacemakers. So this show has been about truth. This segment has been about truth, exposing the rot in our systems, uplifting those who fight for what's right. That's what this show is about. We uplift those who fight for what's right. We are totally heartbroken. I know that you're heartbroken over what happened to Megan Boss. What happened in the courtroom should enrage you, should really just light a fire under you, and you should be upset that a corpse abuser was let free. If we don't fix these laws now, it's only a matter of time where another family has to lose their daughter or sister, mother, and their body is desecrated after being released under the Safety Act. It's only a matter of time. And, this should never happen to someone in the first place, especially at the hands of an illegal alien. But then too, be re-victimized after the release. That is what I'm calling attention to today. So to the Boss family, we grieve with you. The conservative GAT listeners grieve with you. To ICE, thank you for what you're doing. And to the state of Illinois, screw you. You refuse to do your jobs, and every Illinois voter is watching. And if you don't act as an Illinois voter and vote these people out who supported the thing like the Safety Act, your future, this could be your future. The Boss family's fate could be your future. All right. Now, I do have to take a quick break, but we are going to get to, of course, the $55 billion question. Where is all the money going? We're going to talk about nonprofit organizations and the nonprofit sector and how we as Christians should really speak out against the nonprofit sector because it's taken over our job as Christians, which is to help our fellow man, and they hide behind the 501(c)(3)s or whatever. Really, what we need to do is demand that these millions are not handed out to non-government organizations in these nonprofit sectors whose missions are vague and not rooted in biblical faith. I'll be right back with that. Smash that like button. We'll be right back.
Check your blind spots. Men love to call things out. Weakness, hypocrisy, failure. We're wired to spot threats and take action. But Jesus didn't say, never judge. He said, judge not, that you be not judged. Why? Because judgment without humility is a trap. It turns you into a sniper with a log jammed in your eye. Matthew 7 hits hard. Jesus calls out a man who sees a speck in his brother's eye, but ignores the plank in his own. He's not saying, don't correct. He's saying, clean your lens first. Self-examination before confrontation. It takes guts to get real with your own sin, to admit you've gone soft, to face your pride, lust, laziness, or bitterness head on. But that's what real men do. They sharpen themselves before they sharpen others. Jesus didn't just want behavior police. He wanted heart warriors. Men who get the plank out, then humbly help a brother see clearly. Men who don't just flex spiritual authority, but walk with spiritual maturity. In verse 6, it's about discernment. Don't toss holy things to pigs. Don't waste truth on ears that mock it. Know when to speak. Know when to walk away. Before you blast through your next workout, check your form. Same with life. Patriot Pump fuels clean, focused energy, but you've still got to show up. Power with purpose. Clarity with strength. That's how you train. That's how you lead.
Hey, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We are going to be coming back, and I want to talk about the late night Democrat activist Stephen Colbert. He has been canceled on CBS. We're going to get to this story a little bit later. Do you guys know who Dave Portnoy is? He explains why Stephen Colbert deserved to be canceled. And he explains it slow enough so that way the libs can understand. I am so excited about Stephen Colbert being canceled. Part of the reason why I think he's canceled is also because there's just a shift going on. Streaming platform shows like this one, more authentic people, just everyday people delivering the news, everyday people who are delivering content. That is the way of the future. And I think that it's only a matter of time until cable news, legacy media kind of dies off. So that might be a part of the reason why, but also, I mean, let's be real, who watches CNN, CBS? It's your boomers, and I hate using that term because I don't want to disrespect my elders, but I'm telling you right now, the people who show up to like No King's Day, No King's Protest, and they're all like white-haired cat ladies who just like don't follow independent journalism and watch CNN for hours on end. And there's not a ton of those people left anymore. So there is definitely some shifting going on as far as the culture and the way we consume media. And Democrats are dying off because they're old white people. So we're going to get to that here in just a second. I want to get to some of your comments. I appreciate you being here. I love this one. Safety Act should be named Criminals and Aliens, Illegals Rejoice, or the CARE Act. Yeah. What should we rename the Safety Act to? Go ahead, throw it in the comments section. By the way, the left now wants Zoom appearances only for court appearances. So ICE can't pick up the illegals at court appearances for other crimes. Yeah. So if they're on Zoom, then they are pretty much absolved. So they kind of learned their lesson. I forget where that was. I think it was in New York. There was a judge who pretty much walked or allowed this illegal alien to use this side door, and he evaded immigration authorities using this side door in the courtroom. So like the judge got arrested and investigated for this because essentially she was aiding and abetting illegal immigrant activity. The ICE was outside and they wanted to, wait until the courtroom proceedings were done. But then the judge allegedly let this illegal alien go out the side door. And that's what a lot of these activist judges are all about. They'll probably allow Zoom appearances. If I was a judge, I would say, hell no, this is my courtroom. You are going to show up in person for your court appearance. And I don't care if ICE picks you up outside the hallway. Okay. You're going to show up to my courtroom. Now, I would say it would be very annoying if I was a judge in the courtroom and ICE were to barge in and start deporting in the middle of the proceedings illegal aliens. I don't think that I should be doing that. However, if they're outside and they want to arrest or deport somebody after the proceedings, I don't see how that's a problem. Dems just continue to be America's #1 domestic enemy cult, basically. Yeah, 100%. They're just a domestic enemy cult. And speaking of cults, I would say nonprofit organizations. That brings us to this story. Now, here's the story, folks. Illinois lawmakers, they just passed a record-shattering $55.2 billion budget buried deep inside, of course, millions of dollars in handouts to what I call nonprofit organizations, non-government organizations, whatever term you want to use. Nonprofit doesn't mean that they are holier than thou. Nonprofit definitely doesn't mean that there aren't people making money. Some of these nonprofit organizations, and this is publicly available information, you can look up their tax forms. A lot of these nonprofit organizations, I'd say that people at the tippity top, like the CEOs of these organizations, are making a couple $100,000 a pop. Okay, so this is not like, just because it says nonprofit doesn't mean people aren't making money. I want to make that very clear. So this unelected, unaccountable groups, okay, they have political and cultural, ideological missions. And the danger in providing funds to, and I'm not against providing taxpayer funds to churches. I'm really actually not against that if they are a Christian church and if they can prove that they are, in fact, serving a need. Okay. Now, these nonprofit organizations, they're not rooted in an actual faith. The Bible, they don't use a core set of principles. It's just kind of somebody who writes up a mission statement, and they swim in your tax dollars like pigs in a Springfield mud hole. Okay. They love swimming in tax dollars, and they say that this is our mission statement, this is our goal, but nobody ever really holds them accountable, and nobody ever really elects these people. So who's cashing in? Ethnic cultural centers, labor unions, Chamber of Commerce, economic development councils, neighborhood watch groups, healthcare nonprofits with ties to politicians, all of the above. Everybody's cashing in. And, these nonprofit organizations, like I said, just because they say nonprofit doesn't mean people aren't making money. Typically, you'll have 3 or 4 people at the tippity top of the organization making a few $100,000 a year, depending on the size of the nonprofit organization. Now, ask yourself, who's watching these people? Who's watching these mission doers and these good doers? Because it sure ain't J.B. Pritzker. It sure ain't your legislature. This isn't charity, okay? This is legalized looting. They loot your pockets as a taxpayer. And Representative Patrick Windhorse of Metropolis, he said it plainly. He said, there's zero transparency, there's zero accountability, there's zero follow-up to see if these groups are doing what they say they do. So they come to Springfield, they say, oh, this is our mission. This is our criminal justice reform. For example, the peacekeepers, we talked about Blessed Are the Peacekeepers. There were actually, they were through a nonprofit organization, and it was like the Peacekeepers Initiative, and it was in Chicago, and they were giving like social workers yellow vests to pretty much go out there, or not social workers. These are ex-cons. So typically these people serve time for things like gang, murder, drive-by shootings. They get out of prison, and then through this criminal justice reform nonprofit organization, they become a peacekeeper. They were getting like $200 a day in taxpayer dollars, millions dedicated to this initiative. And, I always share the story of this one peacekeeper. He was like convicted of gang violence, murder, and then he was released, turned into a peacekeeper, went out there with a yellow vest, and this was tragic, pulled somebody out at a traffic light, pulled him out of the car, took him down to the ground, pretty much curb stomped him into the ground. The guy needed facial reconstruction surgery, and he did it on taxpayer dollars, okay, this peacekeeper. So not really an initiative that works, okay, but yet we dedicated millions of dollars to giving these criminals, these convicted, or these cons, these ex-cons, we gave them hundreds upon hundreds of dollars a day to go out there and play social worker. So, yeah, these groups aren't doing what they're saying they're doing, and in fact, they might even be contributing to the problem even more, okay? And I would say that We as Christians should speak out against non-government organizations because it is a direct attack on the church. Think about it. Now that, there's nonprofit organizations that exist, like the Boys and Girls Club, okay, our youth groups are empty. Okay, the kids aren't in church learning biblical worldviews, biblical principles. They are at this nonprofit organization, daycare, and they are not really learning the tenets of faith, and they are loosely following this ideology that was crafted by some Becky, who might be 17 years old, fresh out of college, and she was told, write a mission statement and put it on our website. Okay. So they have no true values. And I know that might rub some people the wrong way, but nonprofit organizations, they aren't rooted in something that's been around for thousands upon thousands of years. The religion Christianity has been around for thousands upon thousands of years. And there's millions, billions of people who identify as Christians. This is something to be proven true. And you've got a nonprofit organization who comes up with this mission or this idea or this ideology, and it's like a brand new religion. Okay, that's essentially what it is. And we're dedicating taxpayer dollars to this organization to loosely follow their mission. And, once the check clears, the trail goes cold. Okay, these nonprofit organizations, they get their check, and you can go check it out. It's a state comptroller. You can go type in any nonprofit organization's EIN into this database, and you'll see vendor payments to that nonprofit organization. If you suspect a nonprofit organization is getting a ton of taxpayer dollars, you can throw it into the vendor system. But that's not even really, that's just possibly even outside of what they're getting in this budget line by line. So they're getting even probably more than just the vendor payments, by the way. There's no real way to truly track how much nonprofit organizations get in the state. So the Illinois Department of Revenue or the Illinois Department of Human Services, they're typically the ones who release the funds. And usually in the budget, it's a line item in the IDHS budget. Okay, so it comes out of the IDHS, which is why I say the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, that should be canned, nixed, fired, get rid of that state agency. The next one on the list would be the Illinois Department of Human Services. I think that you just don't need these two state agencies. Okay, so you might remember this infamous initiative. So I talked about the Peacekeepers Initiative, but there's also another initiative called the Neighborhood Recovery Initiative. Now, this was under Pat Quinn, and this was an anti-violence, again, program that handed out tens of millions of dollars to nonprofit organizations that supposedly were supposed to protect the streets. Okay, much like the Peacekeeper Initiative. This was under Pat Quinn, though, not under Governor J.B. Pritzker. In reality, this was a street-level slush fund. Money was dumped into activist groups. And here's what's going on. These activist groups, they come to Springfield, and I watch them. They wear these T-shirts, and then they flip out their T-shirts. So they're a part of multiple nonprofit organizations, and they're getting like maybe $20 a day to go lobby. And these are typically people who, and I hate to say this, but are not of an intellectual intelligence, don't have very high intelligence. The boots on the ground nonprofit workers, okay? And I mean that when I say I've interviewed a lot of these people, boots on the ground, who are lobbying their lawmakers. And really by lobbying, I mean screaming in the rotunda of the Capitol, okay? And I interview them. They have no idea what's going on. Not a clue. They have no idea what they're fighting for. And I suspect that they get like about $20 a day, maybe some lunch to go there. And these are the types of people who would not be able to survive in the private sector unless they were to get some sort of mental health therapy. Okay, these are typically mentally unwell people. or impoverished people who would do anything for $20. Okay. That's the type of people who are in these nonprofit organizations. And I'm not talking the people who are getting paid thousands of dollars, your CEOs, your directors, your executive directors who do show up to Springfield. And they're the ones who, are in committee and sitting at the desk and, advocating for the funds. But the people who are screaming in the rotunda, the volunteers, these types of people are typically very impoverished. And I'll just say it, mentally unwell in some cases, and they are being exploited, these activist groups, by the people at the top of these nonprofit organizations. And what they're ultimately doing at the end of the day, they'll say, okay, you'll keep getting your $20 a day to come lobby, your lunch, your pennies, you'll keep getting that as long as you vote in Democrats and as long as you do as I say. And these people are just very simple in the brain, and they just say, okay, sure, as long as I get my $20, right? So money's dumped into these activist groups, and these activists, these nonprofit activists, I loosely call them that because they don't really know what they're advocating for. They're just wanting their lunch and their $20 a day. This money is dumped into these activist groups, and the cycle just keeps going on. Okay, they keep showing up. They keep voting Democrats, and they keep getting their money. So it's like an entire industry. It's an entire economic sphere that isn't sustainable because they're not really creating anything. They're loosely following a mission statement that Becky created and threw up on a website. Okay, so one legislator literally said that the money is being passed out on the street. That is what happens. The money gets passed out on the street, sometimes in the form of a McDonald's gift card, to these activists, to these volunteers, and they say, oh, we're helping these people. Imagine that, taxpayer piñata. I mean, that's essentially what's going on here. With no adult supervision, you've got taxpayer dollars, and they're throwing money out to these people who then they turn into sort of campaigners. Okay, so what happened when this scam was uncovered? Is there anybody who gets prosecuted for this? I mean, really what they're doing is they're exploiting these people and giving them pennies to do their bidding, to do their political activism. And really, I think people should be fired. People should be fined. Then they funnel the money, the donations that these nonprofit organizations get, along with supplement income from the tax dollars, okay? And in the tax form, these nonprofit organizations are not required to disclose how much is tax money, how much is private donations, which is really, really bad because then these nonprofit organizations, they wind up having like sister organizations. So the 501c3s, they can't turn around and politically donate. But what these 501c3s do, they create 501c4s. And those can be political activist organizations, and it's a sister organization. And then everybody at the top works for that organization, the 501c3 and the 501c4. And it's all the same people. They just have different titles. So like, for example, you've got, say this woman working for the 501c3 as the treasurer, and then she's working as the vice president of the 501c4 in this organization, and these are loosely tied. Okay, these organizations. And essentially what's going on is we're taxpayer funding possibly these politicians to stay in office. We talked about that a lot yesterday, about how people are using taxpayer funds to stay in office, whether that's through advertisement or to push referendums, tax hikes, things like that, so that way they can give themselves raises. We're seeing through the nonprofit sector, they get the taxpayer money, they funnel it into their 501c3, they do some shady things, and then they work with their 501c4, and then through their 501c4, they donate to politicians. And then the cycle just keeps going. The politician says, oh, wow, you donated to me. I'll make sure your group gets this amount of money next budget, next cycle. So the corruption is like weather in the state of Illinois. Everyone complains about it. Everybody knows, to a degree of when it's going to, or how it's happening. And it's like weather, it's just inevitable. And the Democrats just keep voting to increase the corruption. Illinois Democrats and these political activists who serve as little foot soldiers in these activist groups, they continue to elect Democrats because they want their $20 McDonald's gift card. Okay. And like I said, these are smooth brain type people. And I say that like literally, like I don't think that these are people who have the mental capacity to understand what they're doing, and they would do pretty much anything for $20, okay, or for a McDonald's gift card. And they show up at the Capitol and they start screaming, and it makes it look like the cause is great or the need is great, and these lawmakers feel pressured. Really, there is no need. There is no call to action that's needed, or there is no mission there. It's all fabricated. It's all political theater. So you don't need, you won't find a public spreadsheet with the name, mission, performance data. You won't find that financial audits of these NGOs. You get a vague budget line like, hey, this is going to go towards community development, and $50 million is going to community development. And they won't even a lot of times say where that money and what nonprofit that money is going to. They'll just put it in a vague budget line item, like, and it'll be feel good language like cultural programming. $50 million is going to cultural programming. Translation, it's payback for political loyalty. So anytime you see something like, oh, this is a budget line item and it's going towards community development, really it's just payback for political loyalty. If you want a grant, you have to be friends with the legislator. So these nonprofit organizations, and it's really shady. You've got these CEOs at the top, or these executive directors of these nonprofit organizations, and they're typically friends with, or even in a relationship, or have a blood relation to a politician. I've noticed this with nonprofit organizations, which is really bizarre. They'll have a friendly relationship with the legislator. They'll host a rally for the right cause or for their mission, okay? And they are going to host that, and then they're going to grab people, little foot soldiers, and then they'll throw those foot soldiers, those few little volunteers, towards the friendly politician's campaign, okay, cycle. So campaigning is very easy as well. A political campaign, there are things, very simple things that you can do in a campaign cycle for a politician. For example, hanging up door hangers, marching in a parade. A lot of these foot soldiers who are paid with the $20 McDonald's gift card to go to Springfield and lobby, scream in the rotunda, they have no idea what they're doing. A lot of those people are recycled, and then they are thrown into the campaign cycle, or the campaign of a friendly legislator who donated or who secured taxpayer dollars to give to this nonprofit organization. Are you catching my drift? I hope I'm explaining this. It gets complicated, but at the end of the day, these non-government organizations, Illinois is basically running a taxpayer-funded Democrat loyalty program with multiple nonprofits. And, the nonprofit people at the tippity top, they get like six-figure salaries. So these executive directors are typically the friends of the legislators, and they secure the salaries of their friends. And then in turn, they'll donate or even throw a few volunteers their way for their next campaign cycle. It's gross. It's like incestual. Representative Windhorse joined a crime reduction task force. Good guy, good for him, God bless him, trying to make sure the money went where it was supposed to. And guess what happened? Nothing. Okay, so like you could probably sign up for one of these crime reduction task force type things, or one of these crime violence, anti-violence, like you could probably sign up for the Peacekeepers Initiative. Like I talked about earlier, these are ex-cons who dress up as social workers and go out and try to talk criminals out of committing crime. Okay. And it never really works. But you could probably attempt to do one of these initiatives and sign up for it to be a peacekeeper. And there is no like, hey, how many criminals did you talk off the ledge today? There is no metrics. There is no performance metric. Okay. So really what's going on are these people are just paid to live. And we're paying people to live, these foot soldiers, and just barely scrape by and not participate in the private sector. What we should be doing with our mentally ill or mentally unwell, we should be getting them to a point where they can participate in real society. So they've built like their own alternative society with the nonprofit sector. And really what it is, it's people who can't or won't participate in the private sector because they're not good enough. And what we should be focused on for our disabled, mentally disabled, we should be focused on getting them to a point where they can participate in real life, and not pay them for simply screaming in the rotunda, or pay them to knock on doors for politicians or to hang up door hangers for politicians. Okay, so this is how Springfield works. If you were curious about nonprofit sectors and how Springfield actually works, that's how it works. They're going to hold these oversight hearings for the public to see, but you're not going to get to see the backroom sweetheart deals, okay, where, you know, politician is sitting down with executive director of this nonprofit organization. So, for example, ICER, right? And I don't know what kind of backroom deals are going on with that nonprofit organization, but I know that there's been like millions upon millions, so like $63 million in the time of 7 months from the vendor payments, from the comptroller to this nonprofit organization. And they have gotten $63 million in what ICER is. It's a Illinois Coalition Refugee Rights or something like that. And they have all this taxpayer money funneled into their coffers, this nonprofit organization. And what they do is like help illegals with legal aid. Okay. Now, a lot of that $63 million, what's probably going on is they're taking that money and they're providing their foot soldiers with that money, like the $20 a day, to go lobby Springfield and to go yell at lawmakers for more money. And then the politicians funnel more money into their account. And really what's going on is the people at the top of the ICER organization, and I don't know how much their salaries are, but I'm sure it's like close to $100,000. The few at the tippity top, the highest paid employees of that nonprofit organization, they are buddies with the politicians, your executive directors of these nonprofit organizations. And then they go into these rooms and they cut these sweetheart deals. Hey, you give me the $63 million this time, I will be sure through our 501c4, or I will be sure to throw a few volunteers your way when you go to run again for re-election. I can provide you 20 volunteers for your next election cycle, re-election cycle. So it's kind of like watching a magician. Have you ever watched a magician where you're staring at the left hand and in the right hand, they're, you know, stuffing your wallet into a union lobbyist briefcase? Okay, that's what essentially is going on here. They hold these oversight hearings and these committee hearings where these executive directors talk about how great they are, but there's no real oversight and performance metrics that prove that these nonprofit organizations are actually helping people. So this is a government illusion, and it's a performance art. So they do a performance in their left hand, and then with their right hand, they're taking your taxpayer money and they're stuffing it into the executive director's pockets of these nonprofit organizations or the union lobbyists. They're stuffing it into, you know, their wallets. They take your money and then they put it towards somebody else. So as Christians, we're told in Luke 16:10, whoever can be trusted with little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with little will be dishonest with much. So as I close with this segment, I ask you, if the state of Illinois can't even account for the $1 million grant that it issues to a neighborhood group or a nonprofit organization, why on earth should we be trusting them with a $55 billion budget? They've got no clue where all this money is going. That it's just getting funneled into these vague budget line items like community development. And then multiple nonprofit organizations are getting that money. And we don't even know if they're doing the job that they say they're going to do for community development. So it's just mismanagement. It's moral rot. They're stealing from your future to buy loyalty in the present. That's really what's going on here, is just buying loyalty. And they're funding a political machine off of your faith in government and off of your really naive faith in government. They think that, oh, the government wouldn't take my money and give it to a nonprofit organization that's going to turn around and hire peacekeepers who are ex-cons who then turn around and curb stop somebody in the face, and to a point where that individual has to get his face reconstructed. Of course, my money's going towards just causes and good things. It's not. It's just not. It's all pork. So let's not forget, Governor J.B. Pritzker is the king of the pork parade. He brags about his balanced budgets while quietly shoveling millions into these shady groups with zero transparency. That's what nonprofit organizations are. Shady groups. Here's what I've always talked about on this show. If you want to do something like and you want to do something good ministry, do it through your church, right? Your church, tithe through your church, offer to your church, serve through the church, right? I don't know why this has become a fad where there's like people creating like all kinds of weird causes and getting people to try to donate or trying to secure taxpayer funds. Now, the Illinois Family Institute, think Illinois Family Institute. Illinois Family Institute, this is one of those good nonprofits, I would say, and I highly doubt that they're securing millions from the Illinois legislature. They're probably more so surviving off of private donations, but I would say right wing or left wing. So I would say this is a right wing nonprofit organization. The 501c3 is the Illinois Family Institute, Illinois Family Action 501c4. They're closely affiliated, right? What needs to happen for right wing and left wing nonprofit organizations is that there is clear transparency going on where we show on their tax forms how much taxpayer dollars they're getting. I should be able to look that up on any nonprofit. How much tax dollars did this person get in fiscal year 2025? I should be able to answer that question. And even with right-wing nonprofit organizations, which I love the work that Illinois Family Institute does. Now, it's interesting because Illinois Family Institute is faith-based, and it's not necessarily, I don't think it's affiliated with any kind of church. But the nonprofit organizations that aren't doing shady things are typically faith-based. And the reason for that is because just at the crux of the issue, the mission statements aren't tried and true. Okay. When it's a faith-based organization, this has been something that's been around for thousands of years. We know Christianity, we know the values, we know the principles, and we know that they work. And we know that there's a lot of good to come out of Christianity. I mean, I don't think that even an atheist could argue that a lot of good has come out of the religion of Christianity. So I'm not even totally against giving taxpayer dollars to churches. What I am against is giving taxpayer dollars to an organization whose mission is vague and, like criminal justice reform, and they have like a 3-sentence mission statement on their website. And they say that they're going to do all of these things for criminal justice reform, but there's no true metric or performance metrics that are mandated of them in order to receive the taxpayer funds. So Illinois, we have the worst credit rating in the nation, highest property taxes in America, $145 billion in pension debt. And they just spend your money to fund their narratives. and they keep the media fat and happy. And that's one thing that the media has really slept on. They think these nonprofit organizations are like gospel. So the nonprofit organizations will release a press release about something that they do in the community. And then the media is like, jumps on that, and they are like so excited about that. They're like, oh, this is a feel good story and I'm going to report on it. Well, that's a press release and they can say whatever they want in the press release. Are they actually helping people? Who knows? Where are the tangible metrics? Of course, they can go out and table and provide ice cream one day or whatever to the kids in the park. Doesn't mean that they deserve millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars. And our media, they are just asleep at the wheel, and they just are like so impressed by these shiny press releases that they don't do any actual real digging. So this clown show, I mean, they keep getting checks, these ethnic museums, these labor-run job centers, union job centers, okay? And a lot of the case, a lot of times, these nonprofit organizations, you call them and the numbers are even out of service. Like, you can't even get in touch with some of these nonprofit organizations that exist that are getting taxpayer funds. And that just goes to show you, hey, maybe we shouldn't be dedicating millions to this nonprofit organization if there's not even somebody there to answer the damn phone. Okay. They don't even have working phone numbers. So they want you fighting over flags, pronouns, identity politics while they quietly loot the treasury. Every time you see the word equity, community in a budget line, just know that somebody's brother-in-law is getting paid, somebody's friend is getting paid for their loyalty and for their coffers, their campaign volunteer coffers. They're getting paid. So you are not represented. You are harvested. And I want to make that clear. Your labor, your income, your property taxes, they are harvested for the benefit of people who you didn't vote for and you can't hold accountable. So that is what you're paying for. And what's really annoying is, if you weren't taking all of my money via the taxes for these groups, I would be able to have money to use at my own discretion to provide a donation to some of these groups that I might like. You know what I mean? But I don't donate. I'm just going to say, be honest with you, I don't donate to nonprofits. I contribute to my church. That's it. And I recommend everybody do the same, because you really don't know who's operating these things. And a lot of the time, your donation is going to be funneled right into the paycheck of the executive director, who is spending their time getting cozy with politicians and trying to secure taxpayer dollars. And they're not really working on the mission. They're working on paying and exploiting really activists within the nonprofit organization. I know I'm beating a dead horse here. I got to move on, but man, we really need to demand transparency, okay? Ask your legislators, where are the audits? What's the spending breakdown? Why are we giving millions of dollars to X group? Find out a nonprofit organization in your area. Just look up the Boys and Girls Club in your area and find out how many millions have been funneled into that nonprofit organization. And what's really sad is Boys and Girls Club, it's just like a watered down youth group. That's it. Okay. Imagine if we were to stop contributing to those types of organizations. Imagine the youth groups in our churches, how big they would be and how many kids would be involved in youth groups, and how empowered our churches would be if the money was dedicated to the churches rather than the nonprofit organizations. So who's overseeing these nonprofit organizations? What happens when they fail? What happens if they don't, there's nonprofit organizations that don't see profit, which I mean is okay. They don't go bankrupt because they're not in the business of profiting. But you can't do good if you are in the hole by $50,000. Okay. You just can't do. That's not how the real world works. You have to be in the green, okay, in order to do any kind of good or succeed in your mission. And a lot of these nonprofit organizations aren't. A lot of them are failing, but yet they continue to get taxpayer dollars and fail. So let me ask you something. Accountability doesn't happen in the dark. Do you think accountability happens in the dark? No, we need to open the books. We need to perform real audits, and there needs to be consequences for corruption. And until then, every dollar you send to Springfield is a roll of the dice, and the House always wins. Okay, so they are using your dollars to keep themselves elected and to buy loyalty from these nonprofit organizations. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we are going to get to Hunter Biden. Gimme metrics or Democrat communist domestic enemy metrics. Same. Yeah, so if we demand these metrics, there needs to be because I could see what happens, and you're right to bring up this concern there, Danny. What would wind up happening is the nonprofit gives you the metrics that they want to give you, okay, and they don't actually provide you the true metrics, because there needs to be a third party who performs audits and who performs performance reviews and things like that if they're receiving taxpayer funds. That is ultimately what needs to happen. There needs to be a third party who checks this out. I would just love to see the money stop being given. The taxpayer money stop being given to these nonprofits in general, because it's anti-Christian. Okay, anything that the left loves is just anti-Christian. Nonprofit organizations are anti-Christian. We should be faith-based. We should be empowering our churches, not branching off and creating all of these various missions in order to serve the people. Okay, we should be serving the people through our churches, not branching off and creating these bogus nonprofit missions. All right. I got to take a quick break. I'm going to be right back. We're going to talk about Hunter Biden and his outrageous remarks about illegal aliens here next. Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where the claws come out and the truth lands hard. I'm your host, Cat. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that ought to make every Illinois taxpayer's blood boil. You're funding the abortion industry, and the abortion industry is very, very funded by the state of Illinois. So we're going to be zooming in on Illinois. What used to be the land of Lincoln is now the Midwest's abortion sanctuary. Under Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois has gone full throttle into becoming what he proudly calls the beacon for reproductive rights. Translation, come one, come all. Have your abortions here, and the taxpayers are going to pick up the tab. In 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the so-called Reproductive Health Act, making abortion, quote, a fundamental right in Illinois. But that wasn't all. He also repealed the Parental Notification Act for minors getting abortions. So that means little Susie, if she's 12 years old, she doesn't need her parents' permission to go get an abortion. Your 13-year-old daughter can get an abortion in Illinois, even without you knowing. And while Illinois families are struggling with inflation, property taxes, and rising crime, guess where your tax dollars are going? The last few years, just tens of millions of dollars of Illinois taxpayer dollars have gone to Planned Parenthood in just a few years, tens of millions of dollars. And they're not going to just fund the procedure itself. They're paying for out-of-state women to come here and abort their babies. It includes transportation, lodging costs, and logistical support, whatever the hell that means. I'm probably paying for some woman to get a McDonald's sandwich while she's here in the state. And literally, we're running a state-sponsored abortion tourism business. That's what we're doing here in the state. And let's not forget Planned Parenthood CEO salaries. Over $670,000 for Alexis McGill Johnson, regional directors, they make about like 6 figures too. So your paycheck is shrinking, their paycheck is growing, and your roads have potholes, but Planned Parenthood thriving. Pritzker loves to pose as a champion for women, but let's be honest, this isn't even about ideology. It's about power and money. He's not protecting women. He's protecting Planned Parenthood's bottom line and all of these people raking in that CEO cash. And Illinois is now the abortion capital of the Midwest because he made it that way. Governor J.B. Pritzker. Illinois used to be about opportunity and family values. Now it's the go-to state for late-term abortion. Over 46,000 abortions in Illinois were done in 2022 or 2023 alone. 46,000 in Illinois alone, and many of you paid for that. And under Governor J.B. Pritzker, that number is just going to keep going up and up and up every single year. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that taxpayer-funded abortion is not compassionate. It's corruption. And all of these people are making tons of money. And it's time we demand real leadership. It's time we step up and demand that they stop funding this madness. It's time we stand for life here in the state of Illinois. What do you think? Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and be sure to subscribe. We're going to get into Hunter Biden. Okay, so he made some really wild remarks, and I opened up today's show talking about how I don't think that Hunter Biden was sober in this interview, or at least he didn't look like he was sober. In this interview, his pupils were really dilated. He was using crazy profanity language. So trigger warning or warning, there will be language here played on the Conservative Cat Show this morning because I am not going to attempt to bleep all of this out. Hunter Biden was making some really crazy comments. He said if he were the president in 2, 3, 4 years, he would tell the leader of El Salvador to send back the people deported there by President Donald Trump, or he would invade El Salvador. Let's just say I'm glad that Hunter Biden isn't the president. The El Salvador president was referred to as a dictator thug by Hunter Biden, and Donald Trump was referred to by Hunter Biden as a dictator thug. Let's take a listen to some of these clips. Here we go.
Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the fucking president of El Salvador and say, you either fucking send them back or I'm going to fucking invade. It's a fucking crime what they're doing. He's a fucking dictator thug.
Bukele or Trump?
Both. Because I'll tell you what, if I became...
What? Bukele, he got on X and he asked this question. He goes, is Hunter Biden sniffing powdered milk? So leaving aside that the chances Hunter would ever legally become president would be 0 to none. I think a stray cat has more chance of becoming president than Hunter Biden. Leaving, that all aside, he would invade a friendly ally to get back alleged criminal illegal aliens, or not even alleged. These are convicted criminal illegal aliens, people who were deemed to be here in the United States legally. He would invade a friendly ally to get those types of people back. All I can say is that is a very twisted approach to governance. I don't think that is a outrageous claim to make here on the Conservative Cat Show. But they want to talk about Trump's actions. And, I'm sorry, Hunter, we got to start talking about your father. Okay. And his actions while he was in office. So, he, in this interview, attacked everybody from George Clooney to Anita Dunn. So he went on this tirade. I mean, that's the only way I could really explain what Hunter Biden did here in this interview. Shame on the YouTuber. This isn't really like a productive conversation he had. At least it exposes how mentally unstable Hunter is. That I will give to this YouTuber, but there was no real substance from this interview. The funniest part was this clip where Hunter was trying to lecture us on our values. he's probably the last person who should be talking about that topic, about values. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump is performing an important value, his job. Okay, he's doing what he was elected to do by the American people. He does have values. He was elected to deport these people, and he's doing his job. And I thought that the president of El Salvador, I doubt that he's too worried about this attack. Okay. When I read this on X, my thoughts were, okay, the president of El Salvador really could care less about the attacks from Joe Biden. He actually said, is Hunter Biden sniffing powdered milk? And he shared this clip on his X profile. Let's take a listen.
These guys think that we need to run away from all values in order for us to lead. I say, fuck you. How are we getting those people back from fucking El Salvador? Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the fucking president of El Salvador and say, you either fucking send them back or I'm going to fucking invade. It's a fucking crime what they're doing. He's a fucking dictator thug.
Bukele or Trump?
Both. These guys think that we need to run away from all values.
Run away from all values. You are probably not the person who should be pontificating on that topic there, Hunter. But if I were a judge, I would say that Bukele is not really worried about the attacks from Hunter Biden. His X account clearly shows that he's not too worried about the attacks from Hunter Biden. Hunter probably doesn't understand that Bukele actually helped rescue 10 Americans from Venezuela, because President Donald Trump makes American priorities, makes Americans a priority. And El Salvador, because of this relationship that Donald Trump has with Bukele, we were able to rescue these 10 Americans. And I'm going to play this clip. But of course, his comment went viral, Bukele's comment about how Hunter Biden is sniffing powdered milk. And it has over 1.2 million views, something like that on it now. His comment about Hunter Biden sniffing powdered milk, which I think is absolutely hilarious. The El Salvador president has no interest in what Hunter Biden has to say. But I want to play this clip. This talks about the El Salvador president and how he actually worked to free Americans, and how President Donald Trump was instrumental in that, because these people, or President Donald Trump actually cares about Americans and makes him a priority. And because President Donald Trump is so alpha male, he was able to obtain these or to free these Americans. Take a listen to this.
The reality here is Bukele who's been great, Bukele had a number of people there at CCOT. He made a deal with Venezuela, and then Venezuela released all Americans. And so our portion of that deal was to make sure that all of our boys got home. President Bukele has been a good friend enough to know what's important to the United States. And so we appreciate the fact that he cleared a deal with Venezuela to release these Americans that came home. And I will tell you, once they're in our buses, their faces are totally different. They come in downtrodden, surprised, not knowing what's happened, because these guys don't tell them. They pull them up in the middle of the night. They have no idea they're going anywhere. And then they get into American hands, and the picture changes dramatically. I'll tell you something. There's nothing like seeing their faces when they come in.
10 Americans freed in a prisoner swap involving the U.S., El Salvador, and Venezuela. Can you explain this one to us?
Well, it's another fantastic result of a great relationship we have with the El Salvadorian president, Bukele. We are excited that there are 10 individuals who are wrongfully held in Venezuela have been released, and that is due to something Bukele offered them in April, that he would send TDA members, gang members, and thugs he would release them to Venezuela if Venezuela would release wrongfully held prisoners from third countries. And that is the deal that happened. We communicated with the Maduro regime, as well as, of course, with the government of El Salvador, to help shape the simultaneousness of the actions that were required here. And we're very excited that so many Americans are now back home.
Okay. So there you have it. Bukele, Donald Trump, they worked this out. We got Americans home. I mean, this is what peak male performance looks like. Okay. Hunter Biden, I would say, is the opposite. Joe Biden is the opposite of peak male performance. You've got this ally, this friendship between President Donald Trump and the El Salvador president. They were able to bring Americans home from Venezuela. Now, I'm not sure who on the Biden team thought that this would be a good idea to have Hunter Biden go out there. Specifically, I don't think it's a good idea to have Hunter Biden go out there if he isn't sober. And I don't know if he's sober or not in this interview, but man, if the drugs damage his brain, I don't know. But man, he had his pupils dilated. He was saying F this, F that, F this. And there was not a productive dialogue going on or conversation going on in this interview. And I don't know who thought it was a good idea to have him do this. What did they think that this was going to achieve? Okay, besides, burning down that last bridge between the Bidens and the Democrat Party, the Democrat establishment. Already, the Biden family was ousted by the Democrat Party. This is just like lighting that last bridge on fire. So it certainly is getting a lot of attention because of the wild statements, because of the profanity, and because the way his demeanor really is in the interview, Hunter Biden. But Democrats are not going to be happy with this at all. And the White House was pretty blunt. So Bukele, we know that he took a stab at Hunter Biden, but the White House, they responded pretty bluntly as well. They said, luckily for the American people, a house cat has a better chance of being president than Hunter. Really weird comment that he made was like, if I'm president 3, 4, like as if he's like vying for that position. Could you imagine? So a spokesman at the White House said that a house cat has a better chance at being the president. Boom, roasted. So President Donald Trump, he is the peak male performance. El Salvador president Bukele, he is the peak male performance. Hunter Biden is a soy boy, in my opinion. And he's not doing well enough to go out and publicly speak. And I don't know why he did. All right, I got to shift gears. Let's talk about the great economic news going on surrounding the tariffs on foreign imports. So last week, President Donald Trump announced the tariffs on imported goods from Mexico, and he said that those were going to go forward. Among the main imports from this country, avocados and tomatoes are going to be heavily affected. So he's tariffed these products, these imports. And the Democrats, the same ones who scoffed at the high egg prices, during the Biden administration, clutched their pearls over having to pay more for tomatoes. They were so greatly concerned that the American consumer was going to suffer economically because of the tariffs on avocados. And you guys remember Adam Schiff, or was it Adam Schiff? No, Chuck Schumer, who came out with the Modelo, and he goes, this is going to cost American consumers so much money. You see this avocado, it's going to cost so much money for the American consumer. You had your typical, your usual suspects. Mark Kelly, he's a Democrat of Arizona. He cried out about the tariffs on Mexican tomatoes, saying that this was going to be $1 billion tax hike on families. Kelly said, quote, starting Monday, tomatoes from Mexico will have a 17% tariff slapped on them. That's $1 billion tax hike on families. That's going to kill Arizona jobs, all for no good reason. I don't even know how they come up with this stuff. Like, you just throw this tweet out there and you don't even know what you say. So he on X says, it's not too late for the administration to reverse course. Kelly was joined by his fellow Democrat, Ruben Gallego. This is a Democrat senator from Arizona. He also shared an X post, And he was like one step away from slitting his wrist, I think, over this tomato tariff. Okay. He says, Arizona, buy your tomatoes now, all caps. And then he goes, in 5 days, Trump is slapping a 17% tax on all tomato imports from Mexico. Groceries are already really expensive. He needs to reverse this decision now. Okay, so more usual suspects. We've got Katie Hobbs, which she proved here that she lacks independent thought. She doesn't have an independent thought in her brain, in her noggin. She joined the chorus here and she said, President Trump's reckless trade war is back. Leaving the tomato suspension agreement means a 17% tariff hike, 50,000 threatened jobs in Arizona and Texas, and higher grocery prices for Arizona families. We won't stand by while Arizona pays the price. Ah! So the usual suspects were screaming about the tomato tariff, okay? There was so much gloom and doom in the legacy and left-wing media outlets over this as well. The AP, Associated Press, they casted shade on the fact that the American tomato farmers welcomed this development, actually. So a lot of farmers are actually welcoming the tariffs. Here's what the AP reported. They said the U.S. government said Monday that it's immediately placing 17% duty on most fresh Mexican tomatoes after negotiations ended without an agreement to avert the tariff. So proponents said that the import tax will help rebuild the shrinking U.S. tomato industry and ensure that the produce is eaten in the U.S. is also grown here. Okay, so produce that's eaten here should be grown here. So that's what proponents of the tariff say. Mexico currently supplies around 70% of the U.S. tomato market, up from 30% 2 decades ago, according to the Florida Tomato Exchange. Robert Gunther, the trade group's executive vice president, said that the duty was an enormous victory for the American tomato farmers and American agriculture, but opponents, so here is where AP kind of takes a stab. This is the mainstream media. They're taking a stab at these proponents. The opponent said the import tax will make tomatoes more expensive for U.S. consumers. So this left-wing outlet then began to predict that the sky would fall, shared sob stories from restaurant owners and restaurants that claimed that under these tariffs, the tomatoes were going to get more expensive and they wouldn't be able to buy tomatoes for their restaurants. If tomato prices jump because of the new tariffs on Mexican-grown produce, restaurant owner Teresa Razzio says her business could be a bust. So they're saying the sky is falling, this mainstream. And I want to break down what mainstream media does on a regular basis for you, because this is what they do on a regular basis. It's important that we dissect it and we know it and we understand, consume these mainstream media reports, because you see how they had a couple of lines about the proponents, but then they go crazy via the opponents and they say that the sky is falling, and then they predict, make their own little predictions about how the tomatoes are going to be more expensive for the U.S. consumers. So they quote Teresa here. They say, I give it 3 months and then we go bankrupt. Okay, that's a bit extreme. She's the owner of an Italian restaurant in Southern California. On July 14th, a nearly 3-decade-old U.S.-Mexico trade agreement may give way to the 20.9% tariffs on most Mexican, give way to a 20.9% tariff on most Mexico tomato imports. Okay, that could mean higher prices for Americans. This is what AP is reporting. At the grocery store, at the pizza parlor, wherever they use tomatoes. And for some small businesses, higher prices could mean that they close down entirely. Okay, the tomato tariffs are among the latest examples of President Donald Trump's chaotic tariff policy. So you see the language they're using here. They're saying chaotic tariff policy. The prices are going to close down these restaurants forever. The sky is falling, which has shaken up global trade and has left companies uncertain how to plan for the future, and have made Americans nervous about the world's biggest economy, or where the world's biggest economy could be headed. Field-grown tomatoes cost U.S. shoppers about $1.70 per pound as of May 2025, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Consumer tomato prices could rise by about 10%, and demand may fall by 5% as a result of the tariffs, according to, and this is what another thing that the mainstream media does. So I'm still quoting a left-wing outlet here. They love to pull the professor, according to Timothy Richards, a professor in agribusiness at Arizona State University. Who cares what this guy says? Okay, he's a professor. He's not even an actual tomato farmer. What the actual tomato farmers are saying is that they love this. Okay, 1 week in, the sky is still in place. Okay, so we are a week into this tomato tariff. Okay, and the sky is actually much bluer. That not only is the sky still there, it hasn't fallen out of the sky, but the tomato farmers, the American tomato farmers, love this. Okay, on Monday, the White House celebrated the quantified. So let's actually look what happened here quantifiably. We can say that this was a win. The White House celebrated quantified gains since its July 11th announcement. So we've been in the thick of this for quite some time now, this tariff, and it's actually going really well for the farmers. The farmers across the United States are reporting increases in demand. So there is so much winning going on here. Let me share this with you. This is a clip about the tomato tariffs. And this is important stuff, folks. I mean, if you buy tomatoes, you got to know what's going on in the tomato market. This is actually going to be much better for you. Take a listen.
Has been a fixture here on top of Chandler Mountain in St. Clair County for about 60 years. Chad Smith says he's seen a lot of changes over the years and not in a positive direction.
Less than 20 years ago, there was over 10 farms here on this mountain. Now there's barely 5, probably going to be 4 within a couple years. And as another 20 years goes by, there's going to be less and less.
Blake Thaxton with the Alabama Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association says the U.S. agreement with Mexico, first set in the late 90s, was meant to protect U.S. farmers, but it wasn't working.
There's been loopholes that the Mexican tomato producers have taken advantage of and continue to price dump or lower the prices below the cost of production here in the United States and in Alabama.
If they send the tomatoes over and it's supposed to be a set price and they need to move tomatoes, well, they may just give a load of bell pepper for free for them to take the tomatoes. So it's never really worked.
Now, without that agreement, the U.S. has a 17% tariff on tomatoes from Mexico.
So a lot of these tomatoes will actually be going out today.
Smith says he's already seeing a more level playing field.
It's only been 2 days now, and we've actually have a lot more calls of people having interest in doing business. And the price hasn't even changed.
Food security is national security, and we need to be able to produce our own food here in the United States. All
right. So you heard from the farmers, okay? These are actual American tomato farmers, and they like this decision. A decisive move to protect American agriculture and restore fairness. The Trump administration's tariffs on fresh Mexico tomato imports are already boosting American farmers, growers, and business owners. It's only been 2 days, says Chad Smith, the regular guy from Smith Tomato Farms. You know, notice how it's not a professor. No, it's not how it's a Italian restaurant owner in Southern California, a woke Italian restaurant owner. Okay, this is somebody who's regular, who's out in the fields, who knows and lives and eats and breathes these tomatoes. Okay, he goes, it's only been 2 days. And we've actually got way more calls than we anticipated of people wanting to do business with us, and the price hasn't even changed. So another Alabama producer also weighed in on the suspension agreement. So it's called the U.S.-Mexico Suspension Agreement, this 17% tariff, and how it's improved their business prospects. Young farmer Destiny Gladden said she hopes that the Trump administration's decision will mean she can continue her family business in Blount County. So this is in Alabama. Almond Farms and Orchards is owned by my dad, Daniel, said Destiny Gladden. It's my hope that my brother Chance and I will get to continue it for years to come. Ending the tomato suspension agreement feels like a win, the first win we've had in years, and it might actually benefit us. So tomato festivals are everywhere around this time of year, obviously, especially in the South. East Tennessee is looking forward to not only a boom in attendance to these festivals, but the product that's going to be sold. So there's going to be more American products sold. Local farmers are hopeful, and they are hopeful because the tariffs are going to create more demand for the American product. Okay, and that is the beauty of tariffs, and that is the beauty of the deal, the art of the deal that President Donald Trump worked out here, where we've got a 17% tariff on Mexico tomatoes. They are now going to be encouraged to buy locally. People are going to be encouraged to buy locally and seek out tomato farmers in Florida and California when the winter months move in. Now, there are tons of tomato farmers everywhere, American tomato farmers, but as we get closer to the winter months, people might be concerned because Mexico, they manage, their tomatoes year round almost. And as we move closer to the winter months and get into the winter months, we're going to have to rely on Florida and California. So we have to make sure that those tomato farmers are doing well in the winter months, so that way they can keep up with the demand of tomatoes during the off season. Now, one thing that I've learned is that, during an off season, the product's just going to be higher. Maybe you don't eat tomatoes that much in the off season, in the winter seasons, right? Or can, right? That's what we should do. We should take, accountability, personal accountability, and can your tomatoes so that way you have them for the winter. That's what I recommend people do. So let's take a listen. There's one more, a couple of more. I actually do want to get to a couple of more clips here about the tomatoes. And then I'm going to shift gears because I want to get to Hunter Biden. There was one more story I had about Hunter Biden. And Hunter Biden is being attacked by the DHS now as well for his comments about illegal immigration. But let's take a listen to this clip. This is a farmer from Arkansas about the tariffs and talking about the tariffs. Let's take a listen to this. Here we go. Here we go.
Are their top seller. And Logan Duvall, co-owner of Me and McGee Market, is in the same boat. He says this time of year, tomatoes are their top seller, and he feels confident about their business in this tariff environment and the impact it could have on local farmers.
I can't see how the tariff's going to be negative on us at all. Being as tomatoes are a massive part of what we do, and we see the impact when that money goes directly to our farmers in our community versus a multinational conglomerate, right? It's a big difference.
Logan Duvall, co-owner of Me and McGee.
Okay. So I wanted to play a few of these clips just so that way you understand that, the mainstream media never really talks about these types of farmers, the local farmers, and their take on it. They always cite like these university professors and how, these bunk sort of economists and how the tariffs are going to raise prices on the American consumer. And we just don't ever see that happening. And the farmers actually really like the tariffs. Take a listen.
Here in East Tennessee, farmers in Granger County say that can shift customers over to local growers. Steve Longmire owns Tennessee Homegrown Tomatoes. He says right now the county may not see a difference because it's tomato season.
Plenty of tomatoes. That's right. See, like in the fall and wintertime, we have to count on, and the nation does, tomatoes in warmer climates. So that's where it's going to be a good thing for the farmer.
Patty Morgan helps organize the Granger County Tomato Festival. She says it's important to shop local.
For the freshness, because when you get them here, they literally are from the field. And of course, in the store, you're not sure.
Longmire says the higher prices on some imported Mexican tomatoes could help out local farmers in Florida during the cooler months.
Hopefully more of their tomatoes is going to sell at a little bit better price because the tariff on the imports.
Morgan says the Tomato Festival has been popular for years in the area. She could see a bigger crowd coming in this weekend, but she feels prepared.
5 tomato growers, and they do have plenty of tomatoes. That sounds like not that many for as big a business as it is. It's a huge industry in our county, but 5, they'll have plenty of tomatoes, yes.
Yeah, everybody's going to have plenty of tomatoes. Man, I just absolutely love tomatoes. Don't know about you guys, but had the Biden administration cared or gave a damn about the American farmer as much as the Trump administration, they would have taken a tougher stance on Mexican imports. And it might have prevented this conversion of once a thriving Southern California tomato economy. It might have prevented this conversion from that to this Mexico So what happened in the South, because they can't create or make tomatoes and make money selling tomatoes, okay, and that's been outsourced really to Mexico because they undercut the prices. We heard a clip earlier where they like sell the green peppers at like no cost and just to get the tomatoes at the door, and that's impossible for the American farmer to do that because they're paying, fair wages and things like that, and they're actually taking pride in their work. Mexico tomatoes probably aren't as good. I know they're not as good, right? But California, what they started to do was they shifted away from tomato making, tomato farming, and they started doing cannabis. Okay, so had the Biden administration prioritized the American farmer, the American tomato farmer, they wouldn't have had to make this kind of conversion in California. So what do I mean by this? We actually talked about this farm not that long ago because it looks like there was child labor going on at this cannabis farm. It's called Glass House Farm, and it's farmland in Camarillo, California. And they once produced tomatoes and cucumbers until Mexico product priced them out of the market and out of business. So now there's this new cannabis industry there, and all this new cannabis business, what it serves to do is to enable the stronghold Mexico cartels have on the drug trade and increase human trafficking. We saw it here at Glass Farms, where there was a shift. They don't make tomatoes there anymore. They make cannabis, and there was actually children who were picked up by ICE officers. And there's been suspected child trafficking activity going on this cannabis. Like the DHS came out and talked about how this child trafficking could have potentially been going on at this cannabis farm. So this increases human trafficking. Like cannabis is just emboldening these Mexican cartels and the drug trade. So what Trump said in his joint address to Congress in March regarding illegal immigration applies to the promotion and success of the American farmer. Okay, we didn't need new legislation. All we needed was a new president, okay, to get our American farmers to a place where they can sell products and not be priced out and not be kind of forced into this industry that only emboldens traffickers and Mexican cartels. And we actually are selling food, not drugs. So this is a good thing for America. And I think it's going to continue to be a great thing for the American farmer, the American tomato farmer. And I'm glad that you're not going to see this conversion to cannabis farms any longer, because people are going to see some profit in a respectable industry, which is the tomato industry, right? All right. So, and like I said, we didn't need new legislation to fix all of these issues. We just need a new president to crack down on the illegal immigration, to crack down on the Mexico imports and tariff, and get us back to a place of 70-30. I say that all the time on this show. 70% funded by the tax, or generate our revenue from the taxpayer, 30% from tariffs. Prior to President Donald Trump, it's more like 99-1%. Okay, 99% of our revenue generated by the U.S. taxpayer, 1% by tariffs, and that's just not a sustainable or fair model. So Trump is getting us back to that 70-30 model. Let's get to Hunter Biden. One more clip that I have of Hunter. Hunter is, of course, no longer a part of the national conversation, but he inserted himself into the national conversation by doing this interview. He wasn't really a part of the national conversation because, with his father leaving office, I mean, they're all pretty much politically irrelevant at this point, I would argue, the Biden family. But he's trying to get out there and become relevant again, I guess. So the Trump administration is not taking these unhinged diatribes lying down. I talked about how the former first son, Hunter Biden, was attacked by, of course, leveled by the White House spokesperson who said that a house cat has more of a chance of him becoming president. I talked about how the El Salvador president said, what did he say? Smoking powdered milk? I think that's what Bukele said about Hunter Biden, is sniffing powdered milk. So he's been completely leveled by the White House, but also the El Salvador president. Now, he went on multiple deranged rants with this YouTuber. So it's like a YouTube show with Channel 5. So this guy is mainstream media, but he's not. They're doing like a YouTube special here. So it's Channel 5. Andrew Callahan is his name. And he went on these tirades and he described what he would do as president if he were the president. He would invade El Salvador, and he started trashing white men. He started lambasting the Democrat Party and many of its top lieutenants, claiming that his dad, former President Joe Biden, was routinely given Ambien to help him rest. So I want to play this clip for you. This is Hunter Biden. Just one more clip from this interview because it's really weird. It was an epic show of bizarreness that was peppered with, I really mean peppered with unnecessary profanity. I mean, warning, there is going to be profanity here. And I mean, I'm not going to claim that a swear word has never came across my lips, but I've never gone way over the top like this and said F this, F that, F this, F that. This was way over the top when it came to profanity. And, you know, I'm beginning to question his mental state, because somebody who is that laden with profanities, I don't think is in a mentally sane place. So the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, came out and they were not amused with Hunter Biden's tirade here. But let's take a listen. Here we go.
For someone, it might be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. Fuck you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your fucking table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your fucking garden? Who do you think is here by the fucking sheer fucking just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance? And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the fucking criminals? For someone, it might be like all these
racist. Okay, of course the Democrats, you know, he's a Democrat. He ripped on the Democrat Party though, and many of its top lieutenants, and then he claimed that his dad was routinely given Ambien. I don't know what the hell he was saying. He went on all kinds of tirades, but that one was the one about how your gardener is an illegal alien, which is just so ridiculous. Like, this premise that Americans don't want to do those jobs, number one. Number two, that it's okay to exploit illegal immigrant labor for jobs that we don't want to do. That is the whole premise of the Democrat Party. They think that it's okay to exploit the labor of people who are here illegally to do the jobs that are a little bit more labor intensive. And I know plenty of people who have cleaning businesses who are American citizens. Okay. Cleaning businesses, you know, gardeners, pool services. I mean, all of those people are American citizens. Everybody I know who are in those industries are American citizens. It's not like those jobs won't be filled by Americans once the illegals go. Okay. People still need their pools cleaned. People still need their gardens done. And if the illegal immigrants are deported, that doesn't necessarily mean those jobs won't be filled. Okay. And it's racist to consider or to assume that those jobs won't be filled and that only brown people want to do those jobs. It's disgusting. It's a terrible assumption on behalf of the Democratic Party. So under Biden's reckless open border policies, terrorists, gang members, murderers, child pedophiles, they were released into American communities. This is what the Department of Homeland Security said in regards to Hunter Biden. He said, or they said on X, it's really no surprise that Hunter Biden has no respect for Americans who are upset about criminal illegal aliens being let into our country. The Biden administration under Biden, they had these reckless open border policies. These policies had real consequences. Young Americans like Lake and Riley lost their lives because illegal aliens who should have never been in this country. President Donald Trump, Secretary Noem, will never abandon these victims and their families. The DHS will continue to deliver on the mandate of the American people to make Americans safe, make America safe again. So the DHS has a perfect point there. There are real consequences to the Biden family's failures. And I say Biden family because they should have pulled him out of there, Joe Biden. But they let them all come in under the open border Biden policies. And, this may not be concerning to a grifter, the Uber grifter Hunter, worrying about who's going to pick his kale or who's going to change his sheets at his luxury hotel. Okay. As apparently at numerous hotels, because this was just so, what's the word? Removed from the American people. This comment, no, we don't want illegal aliens to be exploited and brown people to be exploited to pick our kale and to change our sheets. Okay. You might want that, Hunter, and you might think that's okay, but a lot of people don't think that's okay. And there was a real tragedy here under the Biden administration. There was a dereliction of duty. He did not fulfill his duties. President Joe Biden, clearly he was on Ambien by the admission of his own son the whole time. And there was a concerted campaign to change the very fabric of the way this country works. And they were dead set on changing the culture of this country. We treat all men equally. Okay. All men and women are created equal by a creator, right? This is the fabric of our nation, and we don't exploit illegal immigrant labor just because they're more labor intensive jobs. And we don't believe in that. I know that the Democrat Party believes in that and that it's okay. But we don't believe in that. So Abigail Jackson, a White House spokesman, jumped onto laid it on thick, jumped onto the Hunter hating bandwagon, I would guess, or I would say Hunter making fun of Hunter Biden. So she says, here's what Abigail Jackson says: a CBP, Border Patrol agent, was just shot in the face by two criminally illegal aliens that Joe Biden let into our country. But Hunter is more concerned about who's going to clean up his hotel room after his vendors. Yeah. This sort of callous, self-interested, maliciousness from the entire Biden crime family is exactly why Joe Biden left office with low record approval ratings. This is what Jackson said, Abigail Jackson. So she's exactly right. They left with a really nasty stain, and it's because this Biden crime family, they are self-interested, and his whole little tirade there just goes to show you he cares more about exploiting the labor of illegal immigrants to clean up his mess after his vendors in his hotel room than he does about the victims of criminally illegal alien crime, like Lake and Riley, or the CPP agents, the ICE agents who are shot in the face by illegal immigrants. So he doesn't care about those people. He just cares about who's going to clean up his hotel room after his vendors. Dems forgot that they're the Confederate South KKK politics. Yeah, this is the same Democrat Party. They filibustered the Civil Rights Act. They, Margaret Sanger, abortion. She's a eugenicist. Okay, the founder of abortion. They are the party of racism, actually. And I'm not trying to project, they could say that we're racist, but they are actually projecting the Democrat Party. And they accuse us of exactly what they're doing. They accuse Republicans of being racist when really they're actually racist. To come out and say oh, nobody would want to do these types of jobs like pool work or gardening or hotel cleanup unless they're brown and illegal. That is just ridiculous. All right. I do my own dishes. I wash my own clothes. Yeah, most Americans do. Most Americans also garden themselves, and most Americans actually clean their own pools. So, yeah, we're not exploiting immigrant labor. Most people don't do that. Most people hire legal citizens to do those types of jobs, even if you're in a position of wealth and can hire out those kinds of things like your maid services or your pool services. You can hire that kind of stuff out. most of the time people ensure that they're hiring people who are American citizens because that's the right thing to do. And then they pay them above average salaries a lot of the time, or above average to do that kind of work. So yeah, that's today's show. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. That's about our time. We're going to be back at it 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.